Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox, and I would like to welcome you to the newest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, From the Editor's Desk, a podcast where myself and Dave Lefort, Editor-in-Chief at Compliance Week, unpack some of the top stories which have or will appear in Compliance Week each month. We look at the top compliance stories, talk some sports, and generally try to solve the world's problems. In this episode, we discuss the Compliance Week survey and articles on the survey inside the mind of the CCO, looking at the gender pay gap, compliance role in ESG, and the compliance role in ransomware and cybersecurity. We take a look at some of the upcoming stories from the ESG Focus in the December magazine and discuss a best practices forum to handle a ransomware attack, which will be presented. I know you'll enjoy this podcast. From the Editor's Desk is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. Welcome to From the Editor's Desk, a podcast where we unpack some of the top stories which have or will appear in Compliance Week. We look at stories, talk some sports, and generally try to solve the world's problems. I'm Tom Fox.
And I'm Dave Lefort, Managing Director at Compliance Week. Once again, happy to be here joining Tom to bring you some of the top stories that CW is following, some featured writers from CW, and again, as Tom said, to talk sports. Today, we're going to be talking about our Inside the Mind of the CCO special report and look ahead at some things that we've got coming in December.
Well, Dave, we have previewed with some tidbits you've given us over the last couple of episodes inside the mind of the CCO. And frankly, I think everyone's really looking forward to not only the report, but the data and all of the conversations and dialogue it's going to bring. So now that it's out, could you tell us, give us a full rundown on it?
Yeah, so I want to touch on a few things in particular on the data related to this. So I want to talk about we did a really deep dive on the gender pay gap in compliance, the male versus female. We also did a deep dive on what is compliance's role within ESG, and we also did an equally deep dive on compliance's role within the cybersecurity arena. So those are the things I want to touch on today. And so starting with the pay inequity among males and females, so we looked holistically at all job titles, but we decided this year to break it down by CCOs. So among CCOs and CCOs, so we had 308 respondents to our survey. Among those respondents, 90 of them were either CCOs or CCOs. So what our data found, and again, pretty big sample size, but not a huge sample size, that women were paid 71% of what men were paid with the same job titles. And we found that was was a similar disparity no matter the company size or the industry or the level of experience. So we sort of found that across the board. So last year that gap was 17%. This year the gap was 29%. So, you can write some of that off to sample size and to just general year over year trends. But the fact remains that every year we've done this survey, the percentage of the gender pay gap disparity was there, and it was in double figures. So we sort of took a deeper dive into that, and we talked to some people about it, and we really dug down into if compliance is sort of responsible for the overall, well-being of the organization. They're involved in a company's ESG efforts. They're involved in the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. So what does that say then about the fact that there's still this pay disparity, this gender pay disparity that's still prevalent in compliance? So it didn't, you can say that these that ESG efforts and DEI efforts have both advanced over these past 2.5 years in particular, yet the data has stayed very similar. So that what that tells us is that companies aren't really putting their money where their words are. And that, we talked to several people within the business, and that's sort of the message that's come across from everybody here. So it's disappointing. So it's digging down into this a little bit. There's a few facts that sort of play out the idea that this is not just it's not directly related to job title either. So in other words, females who had been in compliance related roles for over 10 years, they were paid an average of 67% of what men in that same cohort was. Females with law degrees were paid an average of 75% of men with the same credentials. Female CCOs or CCOs working in financial services, for example, were paid an average of 67% of men with the same job titles in the same industry. And then, females working in organizations, at large organizations, so more than 10,000 employees, they were paid an average of 73% of their male counterparts. So this is sort of across industry, across company size, and even across job title. So it's sort of a, again, companies in this area are not putting their money where their mouth is. And Allie McDevitt did a really good job. One of our reporters, Allie, did a really deep dive into this. She looked really deep into the data. She had some really good interviews. I don't want to steal her thunder, but I just wanted to point out that this was one of our top performing stories from the month of November. It was published in late November. So I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's still on our homepage. The other thing, two other things really, if I can just go quickly through this, is compliance, carving out its role within a company's ESG efforts. So again, going back to our survey here, going back to this group of 308 compliance professionals. So of that group, nearly 3 in 4, so 73%, said that they participated at some level in their company's ESG efforts, either part of a committee, as an advisor, or whether they had primary oversight. So that is 3 in 4 folks who answered this, who were in compliance and answered this question. They played a role in their company's ESG initiative. So a year ago when we asked that question, that number was just over 50%. So you can see that this year-over-year comparison, it not only says that compliance's role here is increasing, it's probably really a reflection of companies' efforts in this area increasing. So that was a pretty big takeaway for us. So the other takeaway is that, like I said, there were 75% said they had a role. That means there were 25% that said they did not have a role. So you get a quarter of the people who answered say they have no role at all in their company's ESG effort. So we took that small cohort of people, that 25%, and we asked them what should their role be. So among that group, 75% believe that they should either be part of a committee or have primary oversight. So even among those who had no role at all within their company's ESG efforts, they believe that that they should have a role. So I think that's sort of an indication of what I consider that to be is that these 25% of companies honestly probably haven't coming around yet to involving compliance. So these are probably the companies that probably leave it as a function of communications or PR. And those are the companies that can really get themselves in trouble, because when you start making ESG promises, or in particular, environmental promises, pledging to be carbon neutral by 2030, for example, when in the past, that's always been a role of the communications or PR department. But more and more, as companies are being held to account for the promises that they make, it's the phenomenon of greenwashing, or of saying what your what you think you can do, but not really testing that against anything, and then being held accountable for it after the fact. So these 25%, really, to me, that's an indication that there are still companies out there that have not yet got it when it comes to doing ESG the right way and for the right reasons. So I think that's the main takeaway that I had from this piece in particular. And this piece was written by Aaron Nicodemus and also available on the website right now. Lastly, I wanted to focus the last point here. As inside the mind of the CCO survey, we also took a deep dive on compliance's role in cybersecurity, and in particular in preventing cyber attacks and ransomware in particular. So we asked companies in particular, or asked these compliance practitioners in particular, what were whether the past year has seen several high-profile ransomware events, in particular the Colonial Pipeline attack. So we asked people in the aftermath of that, have these high-profile events prompted their businesses or caused some reaction in their businesses to beef up their cybersecurity controls? And 66, so 2 out of 3 said yes. Yes, that had a direct impact on our cybersecurity infrastructure or our cybersecurity investment. And so among those who said yes, we asked them, okay, what specific areas are you enhancing your cyber defenses? So 71% said invested in new technology. 70% said increased employee training. 50% say they patched software vulnerabilities. 50% said they increased testing in tabletop exercises. So you can see that there is a lot of this activity and a lot of this new investment that companies are making is in direct response to what's happening and what has happened. So these are lessons learned from real life situations. So that was really the big takeaway from that survey in particular. And I did want to get to an additional point on here, and I just want to make sure I get my numbers right here. So we also asked, what is compliance's role in the cybersecurity function? So this one was interesting because about 30% said they don't have any role at all, and 30% said they're part of a committee. 10%, only 10% said they have primary oversight. So this is an area that compliance is being called upon more to provide support. So you see more CISOs taking primary control of cybersecurity controls, and more compliance working hand in hand with the CISO role. So I thought that was interesting too. That sort of validated some other reporting that we had done in the past. And that was a piece that's also posted to our website, written by Jacqueline Jager. The rest of our package regarding the Inside the Mind, we have a really good piece by Amy Barnard-Bond talking about is compliance the happiest profession on earth? And it's tongue in cheek a little bit, but for the third consecutive year, we had more than 95% of respondents that indicated that they actually enjoyed their jobs. They liked their jobs. If you were to ask that of the general population, particularly during what's being called the Great Resignation, I think that you would find that hovering closer to the 50% range. So it's still very, indicative that people are in this profession for the right reasons, and they really get a lot they get a lot out of what they do, and they're in this business for a reason. They want to do the right things for the right reasons, and this sort of a values-driven mission, values-driven career choice, they find a lot of satisfaction. And I'm really encouraged to see that year-over-year trend hadn't changed. I thought it might because of this, the Great Resignation, where you're having a lot of turnover pretty much everywhere. And it appears that that's not happening at the same levels in compliance.
So, what is the team working on for December, Dave?
So we just actually today wrapped up our December magazine. So our winter edition will be going out to members around the middle of December. It's being sent off to the printer, and we've got a few things, a few of our annual staples that are popular. We have our top 5 compliance fails of the year. We have our top 5. I think we're calling it compliance stars or companies that we're calling out for some of the great things that they did over the past year. We look at the SEC enforcement trends over the past year, and we look ahead to, we sort of forecast what's to come in 2022. And I'll tell you, the cover story and the headline on the covers is the year of ESG. We really see that more rulemaking in that area, and SEC Chairman Gary Gensler is on the cover. So we really put a spotlight on what he in particular is going to be doing, or we anticipate, and what the industry anticipates he'll be doing around ESG. So those are some things to come that we'll probably talk about on next month's pod. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Are there any out of the ordinary sort of events, probably not in December, but maybe in January, that you could tell us about, or maybe update us with your Compliance Week 2022 conference planning and where that may be headed?
Yeah, so we have a virtual conference set for. It was originally in January. We kicked it out to February because January seemed to be a very busy time for people in general coming off the holidays. So we have a cyber risk and data privacy, our second annual virtual conference on that topic, slated to run February 15th and 16th, and that will roll out around the same time as. Something I'm really excited about is we have a case study coming out, a long form case study. It's going to be about, 10,000 words or so, maybe a little bit more, taking a 360-degree view of the phenomenon of a ransomware attack. So what happens when your company is attacked? What are the steps that companies go through? Sort of a best practices look at how to handle a ransomware attack from the very beginning, when an employee walks into the office, opens up an email they shouldn't, clicks on a link, and realizes, holy cow, what have I done? All the way through, the subsequent meetings that happen internally, the decisions that are made internally, the decision-making process that happens internally, to getting the FBI involved, to leveraging your cyber insurance, to leveraging your cybersecurity partners. We interviewed people with the FBI. We interviewed, actually, this is something I didn't know existed until we interviewed them. It's a ransomware negotiator. So it's a sort of a third party that steps in and acts as a mediator of sorts if you do decide to engage with the hackers that have compromised your systems or have compromised your data. So it's going to be a very interesting read. And that comes out in either late January or early February, around the same time as our cyber risk and data privacy event. And we'll have some of the folks who will be interviewed as part of that case study will be also involved in this event. So we're sort of melding the long form case study, the long read, with the virtual event where people can actually pepper these subject matter experts with questions. So we're really excited about that. And then, we have our May national conference is humming along. We're super, super happy to announce that we've booked SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce is going to be one of our keynote speakers at this event. So we're very happy about that. We're in talks to book a number of others as well. I'm not ready to announce anything quite yet, but just know it's going to be a great time. We're really looking forward to being back in person. And yeah, so we're all systems go in steaming ahead, planning ahead for that.
Well, I'm, for one, very excited about, obviously, the annual conference, but frankly, this best practices sort of forum on ransomware sounds really interesting. I don't want to call it a hybrid event, but when you can pair PA IR. The two formats of a written report or the long form articles that you guys are so well known for now, together with the panel, and you can actually prepare a little beforehand. That sounds really intriguing, Dave.
Yeah, so we intentionally set it up this way so that we would be launching this report in advance of the conference, so that it's like you said, you can actually read it, you can go through it, and then come prepared to hear from some of the primary sources involved in the reporting. So I think Allie McDevitt is working on it, and she's talked to maybe 12 people so far. She's got a few more on her list, and then we'll have at least 4 or 5 of them speaking at this event. So we're pretty excited about that too. We think it's a good opportunity to sort of go across 2 different formats here.
Well, all that sounds great. Now let's move to, I guess we no longer save the world, but we do talk sports. And unfortunately, the biggest sporting event over the last 24 hours has been the baseball strike. And I would say it's like all baseball strikes, it's about money. But in reading everything I can, frankly, I can't quite figure out what the owners want here, other than to maybe spank the players, get some additional playoff games, which it doesn't seem to me to be too big of a controversy. And so I'm an old union guy. And when you have people that aren't working and are not being paid, that's not the time to lock them out. I don't know who gave them that advice. But anyway, you're a sports reporter. You've been around this for a long time. I don't know if you covered 96 or 95, but what do you think?
So I think, what I read about it, here's what I know. I know that the day before this lockout happened, they met, I believe it was in Texas. They met for 7 minutes, the two sides. They met for 7 minutes before they came to the conclusion that, okay, this lockout's happening. And yes, okay, it's not a big deal to have a lockout that you start in December. Nothing's happening in December. But that is not, I haven't seen any indication that this is not going to be another long, protracted situation. So the MLB Players Union, as is pretty well known, that union is stronger than most. And among the sports leagues, it is absolutely the most powerful. We have guaranteed contracts. There is a lot of power with that players union. And to be honest, it's, this does feel like to me, and, your instinct, I think, was spot on here. It feels like it's the owners trying to puff their chests out a little bit to make a power play here. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to come across to fans, and also keep in mind an already dwindling fan base, particularly among the younger set. It's going to come across as sour grapes if this drags on into March, potentially into April. Opening day is supposed to be March 31st. If I had to place a bet on, the over/under when opening day is going to be, I'd probably give it May 1st, maybe June. So we're looking at maybe, at least a delay to the start of the season. And keep in mind, we haven't even been through free agency yet. Like, sure, a few have signed, but there's a lot of players that haven't. So, the longer this drags on, the more tuned out, I think, fans are going to be, especially during these winter months when you've got the NBA to look forward to. You've got the college football playoff, the NHL. You've got March Madness coming up, obviously down the road a bit, but there are and then the NFL season too. So, during these months when the fans' attention is going to be elsewhere, it's not like there's a scarcity of other things to watch, but really when baseball will have its opportunity come April, when there's no NFL, there's no college football, no more college basketball. If they're still in this lockout come that time and they miss this opportunity, again, the lessons learned from 95, 96, then, I don't know. I think they were in a lot stronger position coming out of the last work stoppage back in the 90s. The baseball as a sport was in a much stronger position than it is now. Like now it's, I would probably rank it third among the 4 major sports four major professional sports, I should say, in the U.S. So, at the time, back in the 90s, it was probably number, I don't know. For me, it was number one, but it was at least number two. It was much stronger than the NBA, particularly the NBA in the 90s was those, it was the personification to me of 90s NBA was those New York Knicks teams that were unwatchable. The defense, slow it down, scoring 85 points a game. So those days are gone. The NBA is exciting. The NFL has never been more popular. So this is, it's discouraging as a baseball fan to see this. I don't see it ending well. I don't see it ending soon.
It's a really prescient point, Dave. They seem to have left the fans completely out of this equation. One of the most interesting op-ed pieces I read about it was from a Houston Chronicle sports writer who basically said, "To heck with money, just make the game better." And yeah. I thought that was spot on. Obviously, I watched every World Series game this year, but if you weren't an Astros or a Braves fanatic like me, probably had a hard time. And if you're on the East Coast, I don't know who commits to an 11, 12, or 1 o'clock a.m. ending if it's not your team in the World Series. It's just almost become unwatchable unless you're completely invested in it. And then with the tanking, there's really only about 8 teams that have a shot. I think the Braves showed us that you can make some changes mid-season and still have a good run. And I think the Sox showed us that as well. But the game just seems to be teetering on not irrelevancy, but moving towards that. And heaven forbid hockey ever becomes the number 3 top professional sport in America, because that will portend the end of baseball.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about fixing what's wrong with the game. Not worrying about who's going to get the bigger share of the money pie, but making the overall money pie bigger. I could name 5 things you could do tomorrow to make the game much more popular, especially among younger people. There are absolutely things you can implement right away to make games quicker, more fast paced. They're easier to watch, and they just don't seem to be. Those never seem to be a focus. They seem to be testing things in the minor leagues, and it just doesn't. I'm not confident that the types of things that will portend real change in baseball. I'm not confident those will ever be made priorities either by the union or by the owners. That's sort of where I'm sitting on that now. I'm a little bit bitter today at baseball.
Well, one thing I'm not bitter about is last Saturday when the University of Michigan, my Wolverines, beat Ohio State for the first time in 8 years. So a huge win. I was on the edge of my seat the whole game. My wife avoided me pretty much full time, a little boisterous. But Michigan is now playing for the Big Ten championship game this Saturday, and if they win, they'll make it to the Final Four. I think Alabama plays Georgia in the SEC championship game this weekend. I still don't know how Auburn lost to Alabama because I watched that game too. And we're going to see, I think Georgia's the head of the class right now, but who knows what can happen once you get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would put Georgia ahead of everyone else too. But I mean, I have to say personally, I don't really have a dog in the fight, if you will. But it's fun to see. I like Jim. I'm a big Harbaugh guy. I like Harbaugh. So it's good to see Michigan sort of get over that hump. Ohio State, no matter what, always seems to, and no offense here, not only beat Michigan but usually embarrasses Michigan. It's really nice to see that change, and not especially getting to the personal aspect of it is. I saw that Harbaugh has said he's going to donate all of his incentive money this year to the Michigan athletic department, and in particular to the individuals who either lost their jobs or were on furlough during the pandemic. So I think that's a great story, and it's good to see. It's good to see Michigan there again. Like I feel like the Harbaugh years have been up and down, but primarily down. It's good to see Michigan back in the conversation. It's good to see Harbaugh. Good to see people with personality like that in the conversation. I hope Michigan does win the Big Ten. I hope they're in the playoff. I'd like to see Michigan go up against the Georgia or an Alabama, because Alabama's going to be there. Yeah, it's fun to see, and it's fun to I like to see Ohio State lose too. I don't know why, but Ohio State gets annoying.
Well, we're in complete agreement on that point. For the final sports note, I wanted to pose the following question, hypothetical question to you, I should say, because at this point, the two teams playing each other in the Super Bowl with the highest percentage per the Vegas odds are, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New England Patriots. So here's the question, Dave. You love the Patriots. I love Tom Brady. I love Bill Belichick. I love greatness. Is this our Super Bowl? Is this the ultimate game for people like us, or is this, for the rest of the world, a Super Bowl nightmare?
No, not a nightmare at all. I mean, I think people like Tom Brady's more likable now on the Bucs. Let's face it. So Tom Brady's likability went down with his association with Bill Belichick. Outside of New England, Bill Belichick is not obviously not a admired person. I mean, I admire him. I think he's a fantastic football coach. I do think his surliness and his how do I want to put it? He has an air of entitlement about him because of what he's accomplished. So he doesn't treat the media very well. He doesn't, that's probably a personal gripe on my part. But I'm getting away from the general point here, which is I love to see the Patriots playing as well as they are. Mac Jones is the real deal. I think the Patriots have their next quarterback. However, he's a rookie. You've seen the kind of mistakes that he makes. He makes dumb throws sometimes. He makes wrong decisions. He misses open receivers. So, I mean, the Vegas odds being what they are, I know the Patriots have won 6 straight. It is difficult for me, even as a Patriots fan, to see the Patriots getting to the Super Bowl. I'd love to see it. I think it's too early, and I would love to eat my words, but I don't see it happening, especially if you go up against the likes of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who are, yes, a down year overall in the AFC. No one's really stepped up. Buffalo's down. The Titans have had injury problems, and they've lost to the Texans and the Jets and just some awful teams. Bills have lost to some awful teams. So there's no team that's really gained any separation. So I won't rule it out, but I have to believe that there's going to be a team here that catches fire, and my money's on the Chiefs in the AFC. That's going to, at the end of the day, teach Mac Jones some important lessons the hard way. But that being said, I love to watch it. This is a found year for me as a Patriots fan. Like after last year in Cam Newton and the way they started this year, 2-4. To see Mac Jones come along the way he has, and to see the Patriots defense as electric as it is, it's just great to see that. And there are comparisons being made to this 2001 Patriots team that was led by Brady in his first year as a starter after Drew Bledsoe got hurt. And that team was led by its defense. And Brady at that point was a game manager. He was a dink and dunk quarterback, very similar to Mac Jones. Same offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels. But that said, I think it's early. I think it's early to call the Patriots favorites. I think it's early to call them. I think this year's a success if the Patriots win a playoff game. I'll say that.
So, first of all, when it comes to pressure and whether Mac Jones can handle pressure, I think of what Dak Prescott said when they asked him as a rookie, how on earth can you handle this pressure? And he said, I played in Tuscaloosa. Well, he was a quarterback at Mississippi State. And he played in Tuscaloosa. Mac Jones played in Tuscaloosa every other week. So he's played in pressure-packed games in the SEC. Number 2, the road to the Super Bowl goes through Buffalo. And why does it go through Buffalo? Number 1, the Patriots play them twice in the last month, but the Buccaneers also play them. So the Bills have a very tough schedule. And I don't know if the Belichick mojo on the Bills will come out or not, but, those are going to be highly competitive games, every one of them. So when you're playing your number 1 opponent head up, it's as on you as it can be. And the Bills have a tough game against the Bucs as well. So I'm kind of leaning now towards, I'm thinking the Patriots are the favorites for the Eastern Division. And if Mahomes catches fire, he catches fire. But they've shown a few weaknesses this year that I'm not sure they can correct in mid season.
Yeah. So I'll say this about your comment about Mac Jones facing the pressure in Tuscaloosa. I'll just ask. I'll ask the question: did he really face pressure in Tuscaloosa? Yes, there's pressure to perform, but if you recall, the talent that he had around him was incredible. He was throwing it to oh God, I forget the names now, but I know Waddle in Miami having a fantastic year. Like some of his targets are, I think three people either on his receiving core or in his backfield or in the NFL. So at Alabama, he had all the weapons. He had wide open receivers. Granted, I couldn't hit a wide open receiver, but if you're a NFL caliber starting quarterback, you could. So I would take issue with that. But you're right in the sense I actually didn't know that Buffalo was going to be facing Tampa down the stretch here. I think that might actually give. I think you're right. They give the Pats the edge in the AFC East, even if they do. So I predict they probably will split with Buffalo. They'll win one, they'll lose one. The Patriots might lose to the Colts. Colts are playing pretty well, but I don't see the Patriots getting the number one seed. I don't see them getting that bye. I think they win a home playoff game and they go on the road and they lose to one of the Chiefs, perhaps the Ravens. I don't know. I just don't see it as their year. I would never count out Brady in the NFC, but he's got a tougher road. There's some heavyweights in the NFC, starting with probably the Packers and the Cardinals. Now with Kyler Murray coming back healthy, potentially, I think that's a tougher road for Brady.
Well, it's been a really interesting NFL season. You're absolutely right. No one has separated themselves really in either league. Perhaps maybe the Packers have because of the level of play of Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be a fun last 6 weeks is all I have to say.
Yes. And you know what we're not going to be talking about is baseball.
Unfortunately not, or perhaps fortunately. Well, yeah. Dave, as always, this has been great. I look forward to reading the articles that are coming out in the December issue, and hope we can catch up towards the end of this month to take a look back and look forward into the first month of 2022 for us.
Same here, Tom. Thanks a lot for having me.
Fox again, thank you for listening to this episode of From the Editor's Desk. I've linked to the articles we referenced in this podcast so that you can take a deeper dive into them. I've also linked to information and registration materials for Compliance Week 2022 conference. I hope you will check out both of those. I am extraordinarily thrilled to be headed back to a live event in May of next year, and I hope that you will join me at Compliance Week 2022. Thanks again for listening. Dave and I will be back at the end of November to take another look back at Compliance Week from the Editor's Desk. If you are interested in how ESG intersects with compliance, check out my new podcast, The ESG Report, also appearing on the Compliance Podcast Network.